We spend a lot of time talking about good TRT doses, good TRT protocols, things that actually work out there in the wild, things that get guys results on TRT and make them feel like they're on exogenous testosterone. But one of the things we haven't talked a whole lot about are bad protocols, right? The worst places to be, the protocols that just don't work. In this video, I want to break down an effective dose range, which usually, this isn't an attempt to make a blanket statement, but usually is the worst range for people that are on TRT. In terms of doses, we will discuss frequency within this range, but I really want to focus on the dose range. And I want to explain why it's the worst, because that why has a lot to do with the single most consequential hormone that we've got to deal with, be conscious of, but potentially manage, which is estradiol. Sit back, relax, strap in. Let's get into the worst TRT dose range that you could ever start, and where most people do better, either higher or lower, but preferably higher than that dose range. First out the video, Cortex Labs, which is my company, is a TRT guidance and sexual dysfunction resolution company. Got a range of different products on the homepage, ranging from high-dose TRT Mastery, which is at this stage our most popular product. This is specifically for people who want to explore higher doses, get the libido and erections that come with that, but also have high-level anabolism and strength, while truly getting the benefits of testosterone. You can get this in under a minute, livecortex.com. It's a downloadable video course, about an hour long. It's 20% off, codes on the screen. Use it to get a discount. And look, if you need my help in dialing in TRT, specifically related to sexual function, there are two very popular consults for that. The first of them being the TRT protocol audit. This is a 25-minute call with me, an entire audit of your protocol and suggestions on what you should change to fix your biggest problems. The second, more comprehensive and most popular consult regarding sexual function is the TRT sexual function enhancement consult. This is 45 minutes with me, full protocol generation, adjustment rounds, essentially everything in a package. If you have libido and erection issues on TRT, you can book this in under a minute, livecortex.com, or down the description of this video. We have a source list, which is self-explanatory, and a bunch of courses on mastering sexual function on TRT. Again, everything is in the description of this video or at livecortex.com. All right, so to set a preface, basically the bottom line is that higher doses of TRT and pretty low doses of TRT actually end up better for people than like in the middle. But there is a superior one across like the spectrum of higher doses and lower doses, and that is obviously higher doses. Listen, I'll make a blanket statement here. If you can get yourself to tolerate higher doses of testosterone and you're able to sufficiently control estrogen, if you have to, you're going to have a better time on TRT in every single measurable or subjective facet of experience compared to low doses. But lower end doses of TRT, call that like the 80 milligram to 120 milligram a week range, are default protocols that will almost always have you functioning with great sexual function, relatively okay sexual function is what I should say. Sexual function that is not disturbed by estradiol, because estradiol will fall usually actually within the Quest or LabCourse range. Now, obviously, with lower end doses of testosterone, like say you're on 110 milligrams a week, well, you're going to have pretty lackluster anabolism then, right? Going to the gym and having strength is, I mean, you're generally just not going to have a lot of it. It will be incredibly hard to put on muscle mass over a long period of time. You'll have to do it very, very slowly, and it will take you a very long time, and you'll just sort of inch up, if it's even going to happen for you, at like 115 milligrams a week. At the same time, on those doses, the energy level compared to a dose of 175 or 200, it's not comparable. It'll be abysmal. So down at the lower end, you can control estrogen naturally. It will fall between like 20 and 35 picograms per milliliter. Your total test is probably going to be between 500 and 700 nanograms per deciliter. For some folks, that's okay. For others, it's a crappy experience, but at least the sexual function's good. Now, on high doses of TRT, again, this is where people are going to get the best experience. At this point, I have enough information via the research, the coaching, the consulting over many, many years to blanket statements say that if you can dial in 200 milligrams a week or 250 a week or 230 a week, control estrogen or not, depending on you, most people will have to, and dial in a protocol that makes sense, you're going to have a better time than on lower doses, medium doses, or any doses, and of course, natural. But the crappiest dose range, the dose range within which people actually have the most problems, is the 120 to 150 milligram a week dose range. And that sounds crazy, right? I think a lot of people have been driven to think and influenced by the internet that 120, 130, 135, 150, these are good doses of testosterone because likely the estrogen isn't going to go over range or over your range. You'll have sufficient energy, anabolism, etc., and you should be able to ride off into the sunset. Truth of the matter is that is the case for some people. But for a lot of others, and in my experience, a disproportionate amount of others, that 120 to 150 range is absolutely positively the hardest dose range to dial in on TRT. Not for everybody. Some people, it's perfect. 140, I've done content of this before, is a great place for estrogen to fall in range and for you to have most of the other benefits for things to be okay, so long as it's enough androgens, but a lot of people just don't land there and do well. Here is why the 120 to 150 milligram dose range of TRT is usually just kind of the worst place to be for people that are on TRT. Well, number one, usually estrogen is too high for your androgens at that point. Whether it's 39 or 45 or even 55, depending on how much HCG you're dosing, usually don't have sufficient androgens to offset that, specifically dihydrotestosterone, which acts antagonistically against estradiol at the tissue level to prevent estrogen from impairing sexual function, which estradiol does in men on TRT. The anabolism in the energy is okay, especially on the higher end of that. Like if you're sitting at 150 milligrams a week, it's pretty good. I mean, I think you feel pretty good, and you're in the top-ish tier of energy in men your age, probably at 150 milligrams a week. That's pretty common. So that isn't much of an issue, but it is not really comparable to 200 or 210 or 230 or 250 a week. Obviously, those doses give you a lot more energy. Here's the real problem. At 130, call it, when you try to, if estradiol is over your specific sexual function zone, and we all have it, what is your option then? Lower the dose? Okay, lower it further, reduce anabolism further. Again, you get to those lower end doses where you're not really feeling much of the benefit of TRT, but estrogen's in range, so you have pretty good sexual function. Or you try to control the estrogen. Perfect. That's what you should do, and that's what actually fixes those protocols. But here's the problem with that. Aromatase inhibitors specifically are strong drugs. They are too powerful with the doses that we commonly dose to keep estrogen in a sufficient range for good sexual function, keeping your energy and anabolism at 130, 150, but not crashing the estradiol. In other words, people tend to crash it, right? Because all it needs to do is nudge down slightly. So it's not interfering with androgens and their effect at the androgen receptor, so that it doesn't create a mismatch between DHT and estradiol so that your erections work, so that it doesn't interfere with the brain side of libido, which estrogen does. But think about this. Is there a situation in which you can lower the estrogen 10 picograms per milliliter or 15 picograms per milliliter with Arimidex? In that case, when it's maybe sitting at 45 and it should be at 30? Not really. I mean, you're much more likely to overshoot, and that causes problems. This is why people swear off AIs. This is why they think they are bad, and it's why they try to go natural without controlling estrogen, and they fall prey to the BS that comes out of the pro-estrogen camp. This is exactly why this happens. Your best shot at that point, from a tactical perspective, is to get 0.125 milligram anastrozole tablets and split them in half or even fourths to get ultra micro dosing of Arimidex, or you use the Liquidex strategy to get a dropper solution of like 0.00 something milligrams of Arimidex per drop or per dose. That's tedious. That's cumbersome. Nobody really wants to do that. And even then, so you still have to dose it at the right frequency. You dose it too frequently, and you're going to crash the estrogen still. The same thing applies with DHT derivatives. Listen, Masteron and Primobolan are very effective at, in Masteron's case, reducing the estrogenic effect at the gene expression post-receptor binding level, and in the case of Primobolan, at the aromatase enzyme level. And Primo blocks aromatase. You will have a serum reduction in estrogen, but these are noticeable and powerful at killing the estrogenic signaling. So the same thing applies. You're looking at taking little microdoses of Masteron or microdoses of Primo at 120 to 150 if test to try to get your estrogen in range. And if you're not dosing it right, you're dosing it too frequently or just a little too much of Masteron or Primobolan, you're going to kill your libido because you crash the estrogen too far down, and you probably end up having joint pain and all the other low estradiol associated side effects. So again, it's just not ideal to be in that 120 to 150 range. This is the worst range for me that I see with coaching clients. They come to me, the majority of people that have problems are in that range. This doesn't mean that people on 180 or 200 don't have problems, and it's usually estrogen related, but in that range, you're just in that spot where it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't, really damned if you do, damned if you control estrogen, because if you try, which is what you actually do need to do, you take it too low and you think it's not estradiol, must be dopamine, must be serotonin, and all this other bullshit that is espoused by non-experienced, non-creative, non-nuanced, non-effective TRT practitioners. And there are plenty of them out there, a disproportionate amount. It's none of those things. It is almost always the estradiol that is causing sexual dysfunction on TRT, unless it is prolactin overrange, which estradiol drives. And managing it at 130 a week, no matter how you split that up, is very, very difficult. Now, you go up to 200 milligrams a week. This is another point that I want to make that I've seen over the years in coaching. And then your 0.125 or 0.006 milligrams of anastrozole doesn't crash your estrogen. It's not even possible for it to crash your estrogen, especially if you dose it correctly throughout the interval of your 7-day period after you've injected. You've got sufficient enough time for the testosterone to give you some estradiol so that when you're reducing it over the course of 3 to 7 days, it cannot crash it. Then you get the anabolism, the energy, the enough androgenic threshold crossing for great erections and primal libido. You nudge the estrogen down a little bit, just enough so that androgens can actually function without estradiol coming and reversing some of the positive effects of your androgens, which again, this is what estrogen does on TRT. That's where people get the best results. In my history, I'll just give you my N=1. And again, this doesn't really matter, and you shouldn't take it seriously because it's my individual experience. I should also say that this has been backed up by other experiences with other clients. So there is a whole group of people that this data comes from, but my N=1 is like, I could never take 0.25 milligrams of Arimidex on any regular TRT dose. Okay, 140, 150, 120, obviously down there at like 110, 115, but not even 175. I'd take the estrogen down too low with a 0.25 milligram dose. That was effectively off limits for me. Now on 250 a week, 0.25 does not crash my estradiol. In fact, it takes me right in the zone. But I don't need it to be that low. I'm on 0.125 every 7 days at this point, and it's perfect. It's literally within my range. But on lower doses of testosterone, 0.25 would send me into low estrogen crashing hell, right? You know, all the common stuff we get, joint pain, depression, you feel like nothing's good in your life. Even then, your libido drops, your erectile quality drops. There's just nothing good about crashed estrogen. Got enough test? The AIs don't crash. If you're being conservative, even still up there at higher tests, you got to be conservative with the dosing. Okay, so this is what I've learned over the years in doing TRT coaching. The worst dose ranges generally are 120 to 150 milligrams a week, just kind of right in the middle. And it has everything to do with estradiol. And the fact, if you try to manage it, which you absolutely need to do in those cases, if you're having sexual dysfunction, you crash it. It's just too easy to overshoot based on the strength, the speed with which they work, and the function of aromatase inhibitors. This is why I suggest either go down 100, 120 milligrams a week, 115 milligrams a week, if you can tolerate it and you have enough energy, or go up, learn how to manage estrogen sufficiently, you'll have a lot better of a time. Now, look, sometimes on high doses, you don't have to manage estrogen, and that's usually with gapped out frequency and a couple of other critically important strategies to employ when constructing a TRT protocol. We break all of this down in high dose TRT mastery. Listen, if you're tired of the medium doses, if you're tired of the low doses, you haven't really given high doses a try with proper control of estrogen or without it, depending on gapped out frequency, just get high dose TRT mastery. I mean, this course will teach you how to actually feel TRT and be on the other side happier, stronger, with raging libido and great erections. It's 20% off. You can get it down in the description of this video. It's instantly yours. I mean, you could start watching it tomorrow and execute tomorrow. Like, you could change your protocol, fix your protocol starting today or tomorrow. Get it down below. We got a source list. It's self-explanatory. If you guys need to go grab whatever you need to grab, that's there. Plenty of other courses on mastering libido and erections. Like, everyone should have the sexual function playbook. This is a downloadable digital guide. And look, if you need me for coaching or consulting, either book me for a single session, 25-minute call. That's the TRT protocol audit. I'll audit your entire protocol and give you suggestions on what to change. But specifically, the most targeted consult for sexual dysfunction on TRT is either long-term coaching, where you can have me for 3 or 6 months, or the sexual function enhancement consult. Okay, this is 45 minutes with me, an assessment of everything, an online command center within which I will generate targeted protocols for your physiology based on your response patterns and adjustment routes if we need them. All right, this is the full package. The moment you book this, we're on the fact-finding call the next day or shortly after. There's a very quick turnaround time, and we'll get your problems resolved. You can book this in under a minute. Please go look at the reviews. Go look at the FAQs so that you understand exactly what comes with this, and book it at livecortex.com. All right, my brother in test. Happy Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you. Do me 2 favors. Like the video. Makes a huge difference. I need you to do it, so please hit that like button if you made it to the end of the video, and sub to the channel. If you're not subbed, you're going to love being here, and brother, I want you here. All right, kick ass, rock on, enjoy the rest of your day, and man, I'll talk to you on the next one.